bear with because this is a video that's based off of notes, so I'm not sure how cohesive it'll be. I guess I should just go down the bullet points, but I think one thing that IQ can sometimes be mistaken for, or this is mistaken for as IQ, is this middle class illusion thanks to communication capabilities, and if you're somewhat good at grammar and have an emotional intelligence and you're polite, you, like, the bar is so low these days, especially when you're fed the most grotesque displays of interactions, like fights, videos of fights and altercations, and when you're in public and everyone just looks gross, you kind of have enough, I guess I could say, grace. There's still some etiquette left in you, so you believe that you're better off or should have more opportunities based off being a good person, and the world does not reward people for being good people most of the time. And I guess that's a good thing because, I mean, people shouldn't be rewarded for the basics, but even now, having responsibility for yourself and your basics is over the top. Like, I'm constantly seeing comments about people's ages and how they're not adults when they clearly are adults. Like, 18-year-olds aren't adults and 22-year-olds aren't adults, especially if they're women. And you're still allowed to try to figure things out when you're 30. And I kind of get the feeling that it's almost like adults are infantilized in order to get to children. I think it's like a pedophile thing. It's like the more we blur the spectrum of child and adulthood, and we continue to say that adults are children, the more we interchange that, which is my theory that has to do with pedophilia. That is a separate but related thing. But I think I have like this middle class illusion, or I don't want to say this sense of deservingness because that seems a bit vain or big-headed or something, and thinking that I'm superior, but it is easy to have some kind of like cognitive dissonance between my reality and my perception of self, or kind of basing my future or present off of where I've been because I went to a well-off high school. I'm not sure if I ever shook off that access of, there's like some kind of essence you get when you're in certain environments, and even though I've been pulled away because I still work in that location, and I've been around people of higher classes and work, maybe that's why I'm not as concerned or haven't set more monetary goals, because I just have the illusion that I'm adjacent to these people or naturally it'll somehow occur. It's like being falsely satisfied, like people that watch mukbangs or mukbangs because they want to eat or they want that sensation of being full. I think in some ways, well, I'm not sure, like, I feel like I both have the sense of absolutely starving in life, but also being fine. I was watching some Kevin Samuels videos, which I don't really do, but I got bored, and one thing watchers will comment on is the importance of natural beauty, and the people that they're saying are like naturally beautiful, some of them kind of wear glasses and they just look nerdy to me, and that's not a bad thing. It's just, I don't know if, I can't tell if the beauty standards have once again changed. Like, the people that they're saying are naturally pretty or natural beauties 10 years ago would have been called like nerds and losers. And I don't know if the men saying this in particular remember this, or they're pretending that they have always been attracted to women that look like this. But it just reminds me of what I looked like. And no, like the standards then, you've always had to be like the girls, guys would go after would wear mascara and lip gloss and all that. So it's just interesting to see, like, maybe they've gotten so used to makeup that it's just one of those situations of trends cycling out. But the appearance of being like naturally beautiful, it's more so the appearance of being like wholesome and a good person. And I think one reason why more women don't look like that anymore is, in general, the price of being a good person seems to mean nothing in this world anymore. I think there are so many institutions that steal from you, and so many just daily obligations, like your work environment, or the bills you have to pay, or the laws you have to follow, that we get so crushed. And I think even with makeup, like, people don't see the benefit of not doing that. Like, why not wear makeup? Why not dress a certain way? It's just like, okay, more policing on my body. And even if I look wholesome, I will still be judged. Like in these videos, the girls, the women, they're like, the comments are still, most of the comments are still talking about how they're not good enough. They're talking back a little too much. They're clueless. They're stupid. They have no self-awareness. And it's not that I disagree. It's just the standards constantly changing, and I think men being hypocritical because they swear that women want Chad, but they have the supreme, like, unicorn convention that can never be satisfied. Like in my submitted request, the comments talking about not even me, just like making up a woman that's ran through and is already the worst version. And I'm not a perfect person, but I'm still closer to the ideal than not. And I think it's just a matter of men constantly being like, women need to settle for average. Like, why isn't average good enough? And then when they see an average woman, they are still picking her apart. As if any of us wanted to be this way. As if any of us thought we would end up this way. As if we knew this would be the culture. I was watching some other videos that got recommended to me, and this woman was going on about survival mode, and it just reminded me of Like, a family member took advantage of me and basically stole a lot of money. And, that was my price for being a good person, I guess. The bit of me that had loyalty to family, that maybe always thought if I just give more, then they'll see how much they should pay in return, that I would even go this far. But obviously, there's something in me that craves a depth of relationship, and I'm showing that I want this, that, I would be that person to give this much. And when they took advantage of me, it's kind of like realizing really late in the game, like, I need to stop responding to these people because they're just titles. Like, this is, you should have commitment, even in, like, in all your relationships, you should have a kind of commitment that, for a certain standard as a person, to be decent. And the only way I can look on it on the bright side is, I guess, would I rather have dealt with this boundary situation from a family member or a stranger? And I guess this person assumed that they must have had faith that I'd be alright to make such a big sacrifice. Or else, maybe I'm making the narrative up some compassion that has never been there, but really understanding the point of survival mode and how it's time for me to solely focus on myself, even though I feel like I focus on myself all the time, but in this way where I really accept betrayal for what it is and just stop waiting for change, especially from people that are decades and decades old and watched me grow up. And I feel like sometimes they're just betrayals that it's like you want to get over it, but then you realize there's like a new layer suddenly appears. And I'm thinking about, it's not just generations failing people, but it could literally be your own siblings and how they watch you grow up, but nobody gives wisdom. It's like not only your parents don't, and your aunts and uncles don't, your siblings don't, and then you don't for your younger siblings or the people younger than you. Like, I had a situation where I was called to maybe help a relative of my dad's, and like a young girl, because she was going through depression or something. And I just felt like nobody ever helped me. And I can't adopt that problem. And I feel like that's what happens in life, is like, people just go through their own thing, and then by the time you arrive, they don't have the capacity to take on that baggage to help, even if you're a child. And they kind of just let you wander through hell. And I don't know if I can blame them or not, because I've now dealt with that situation where, I was close to being called in to help, and it's like, no, I have to live my life. Is that what everyone does? Everyone just decides that they need to live their lives, and then that's why culture and people just spiral out of control, because you just reach that point of selfishness, because it's natural self-preservation. And realizing that even though these people might have loved me, or say they love me, it is such a, love needs to be constructive instead of spilled over, and using love as a tool to drown out the issues, to not apologize. Love needs constructive, like, it needs a shape, it needs goals, it needs rules, it needs a place, it needs to be built into life instead of, I've always experienced love as kind of a washing over. It's said a lot, but I'm not sure if that meant anything. And I think that's one, way masculinity really comes in. I feel like masculinity is such constructive love. It's actual love with direction. Or, the situation of my mom, and I feel like she has the perception of being an independent woman and doing it all herself, but the circumstances in which we were in, her independency was more asking for help. It's like asking for help from the government, asking for help from schools, from food shelves, like things like that, in order for us to live. And not realizing that that's not being independent. Like, you're doing the work for others to do the work. And I think all that burnt her out in order to not, um, like, emotionally available, just available in any other ways, just assuming that, just to be available in a personal way. To, like, till this day, and I'm really, I'm considering just blocking her for the rest of the year, because I think just having her, just having mom in my contacts, my phone, gives me illusion that she's someone that I can reach out to. But when I reach out to her, she just talks about being stressed, about, she can't handle my venting, which I really only do once or twice, maybe like once a year, like actual, I try to open up more, but there's literally nothing she can do to help. So I feel like blocking her would lead me away from the distraction of the illusion that this is a title, this is a person that I can talk to. And the closure of fully coming around to that. Like, I know it conceptually, but it's something I forget every day. Because you really believe that your mom can fix all your problems, even if she's the one that made them. I was also listening to this Cold Pain group chat thing I found from 6 months ago, and it was just going over the basics about dating, how women are a pain, and are emotional, and have ruined culture by being sexual deviants and all that. Which I also need to stop listening to this stuff, because it's just become a habit. Because you get interested in something, and then you listen to the topics, and it becomes a habit, and you just wait for a new interest. But in the meantime, you still listen to it even though you know it's not helping you, and it's not helping them either. It's like, on one hand, people are collecting this kind of these antidotes, but on the other hand, it is too much involvement in other people's lives. Like, to come together just to show confirmation bias, just to share all these stories, and to create this kind of, your own reality algorithm, and saying that women are all such and such, me over generalizations. And then I think about my friends and myself, and including myself, some women that I've met, most of them I met after they were 22. And they were still virgins. Some of them are still virgins. They don't go clubbing. They're very, we've mostly met online. So we've always, communicated our interests. We talk about a variety of topics. They're of a variety of races. They're from different places, like different states. And it's like, I know they're out there in the dozens. And I keep being told that they don't exist, I don't exist, and men, like, another hypocritical thing, like, men aren't advising each other to go to church or find a religion to find a good girl. It's still harping about these women that wear makeup and are on fresh and fit. It just doesn't make sense for you to say that all these average men exist and they're getting passed up, and then, for every average man, there is like an average woman. There's only so much like time you can spend hearing these same statistics and information. Like I can't believe some people have been doing this for 10 to 15 years. Like I don't think I can have an interest for more than 2 years now. Or I usually stick between like 2 to 5 years maybe. 10 to 15, that is a lot of lifetime to consistently be bitter, and it's like they are trauma bonding. It's very womanly, and they think that it's not womanly because they're alphas, or they're, or they talk about masculinity, so that's just, it's enough to talk about. But the reality of the situation is they don't call out people that they see in public, probably. Like, you can call women, like, nasty and fat and grotesque online, but you don't do that in person. You don't call out single mothers in person, which I know is, like, natural. Like, I also don't, if there are things that I don't like about people, like, I don't talk to them in public, but I feel like, regardless, you should own up to that there is no way to end a culture war in which we are all fighting in our heads on different sides. Like, even I can have new beliefs, but in what ways does it come up daily? Like, would I go to work and just start red pilling people, or talking about my spiritual journey, or like, how do you win the culture war in real life? Because I've only ever seen it online. How do you protest modernity? Just in general, should I just like walk around with a cardboard sign that's like, stop cell phone usage, things like that? Like, I don't understand how to use these beliefs unless you're curating like your own reality. So like, I don't really understand the purpose of complaining together anymore, and that's something that pulled me away from feminism, because once you realize that you can't be part of a movement, because the truth is, like, other people end up falling into their own biology. So when I thought we were all going to be feminists and blah blah, and then eventually like the women get married, it's like, don't men see that sometimes in this manosphere situation of men also, like piling on each other and like talking smack about women, and it's like, yeah, they suck, yeah, they really do suck. And then half of them still go out and sleep with them, pump and dump. That is like so, like, I just don't understand how you can say, well, men love women the most, and we love them wholeheartedly, like, we love them for real, and then half the time you are literally interchanging them, you find them as interchangeable wholes. And it doesn't matter like who you sleep with, just anyone will do. Or if you're this intelligent, why don't you go find the intelligent woman? Why do you still keep getting mad at these hot bimbos or the average plain Janes? Why don't you, like, if you're so smart, wouldn't you have located a unicorn? Like, create a new algorithm, create a new dating app with your Jimmy Neutron heads. It reminds me of this. This time I went somewhere and there was this man outside talking about flat earth, and I was like laughing about something else, and he thought I was laughing about him, and he was doing like a live stream. It was very weird. It's like kudos for him for, going out in public to spread his truth. But that's exactly what I kind of feel like most of the people online are doing. Or it's like that's what we would have to do. We would have to take it outside, and you would look like an absolute loser if you were holding a sign that was like single moms are breaking culture apart. It's not to say that you're wrong or you're right. It's just like, like at least crazy feminists go out and protest and they stick by their word. You men will have all these beliefs and keep them inside and keep them online in your little computer rooms, in your secret discords, and these like podcast systems. Like, why don't you all get together and march around Washington? Like, go do the work. I also had a point this week where I was like, I don't know where my self awareness ends or my navel gazing begins, and I want to do something that like helps people. As cliche as it sounds, but it's like I want to feel like the fabric of something. I want to do something wholesome. I want to do something nice because that just feels good, and it's what should be done. More people should be doing more kind things and generous things. But now that I have such a perception of people that are responsible for their own demise, it's harder to feel like there are people that I can genuinely help that haven't just gotten to where they are on purpose. Even though I also think, in a way, free will doesn't exist and our lives are planned out. Like, say I help at a food kitchen, a soup kitchen, and it is just a bunch of single moms that had a bunch of unplanned babies. Like, I don't want to indulge in that. I don't want to reward that. So, I need to figure out a way to do acts of service that aren't so fake or like self-congratulatory. So I guess like it'd be better to help older people or maybe veterans because they like clearly sacrifice something and have done a good thing, I suppose, rather than just like random people that couldn't even honor the use of their minds, like couldn't even interrogate a thought. I truly dismiss life before sex. Like, this makes me so concerned for children even more. And their introduction to sex at earlier and earlier ages, and sex ed included. Like, any of the discussions, because, like, once you're in your 20s, it's like, not only is sex a topic, but now everything is it. It's like, talking about dating makes food about sex, makes housing about sex, makes love about sex. Everything's transaction. It's like, women want free food, so we pay for their food, so they give us sex. It's like, I'm so sick of thinking about this. And and it is literally life. So you cannot think about what brought you here and what will continue the world. But there's such a fatigue to it that I can't even think about sex in the actual sexual way, or of actual temptation, of actual connection, because it is so like it's political, and it is also like the fabric of everyday life and why anything gets made. And I just miss, like, when people had crushes, and it wasn't about all of this. And when you had a crush on a guy in school because you liked him, and that was literally it. Because he couldn't do anything. So, this idea that men are only loved for what they provided. The guys at school, they didn't provide anything. But their faces and maybe some jokes. Maybe some annoyance. So, I think, my perception of God is still different from other people's. But I just feel like that's the only way I'll gain some kind of peace in a relationship or just in general contact with people. Otherwise, I'm just stuck in like degeneracy and also black pillars that are pretending to be red pillars. The fact that I know anything about pillars, like I just want to be away. I want to be a normie, a good normie. And it seems like values and traditions only align with the religious anymore. Anomalies like me are branded non-existent and encouraged to go that way anyway. So my last point on my yellow notepad is I literally just went to go grab like a water bottle today and I thought of this. It was like, isn't war natural? It's like, why is everyone anti-war? Like, why are we still thinking wars can stop? Our war is a good thing. Like, this is me really losing my mind. And I'm gone. This is like, I guess this is my final point of, I will never accept pedophilia, but I guess I'm accepting war now. Because it's natural for people to conquest other people, I guess. Like, why do white people really hate that whiteness is considered bad, or like critical race theory or Black Lives Matter? But when we talk about like the Native Americans being like taken over, it's crickets. And what I think is, okay, war is inevitable, and that means with a free for all, you can use all the tools you want, just like the CIA has used subliminals and psychology on us. Like, why? When you're winning, when you're winning, it's fine. But when other groups are winning, suddenly it's not fun anymore. These people think that Black people are intellectually inferior. I guess not, since they they found a way to like hijack your brains and your family and have like spread this liberal disease. Well, I don't know if they're necessarily in charge of that. I don't know who's in charge of this, whatever's happening. But I guess you have to be stoic about that, bros. Like, war is war. So fight harder to win the culture war and to stop diversity or, fat phobia, whatever the hell is happening. Like, is this what I was really born for, to think about these things? Like, everything I just said in the last 40 minutes was not in the Bible. If you know that Twitter joke. It is not something I could have ever thought I would think about 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago as a kid in a completely different world. That reminds me. I feel like I don't know if anyone else relates, but if you're a millennial, I already feel like a boomer. I feel like I've been a boomer since I was 25. In the essence, like in the nature of not recognizing culture. Like, I don't recognize this world from 2012. And it is very lonely. It is just crazy. And I don't know how people older than me can even stand being alive, because I feel lost in 10 years, or like, I just don't recognize anything. And that's even being shown things that I've lived through. Like, we're in this trend of nostalgia, so a lot of the things that I grew up with will come back, but it still feels, it doesn't feel like home. Like, this place doesn't feel like home. So if you're older than 40, I don't know how you're doing it. And I just don't know how I'm gonna get through life when it already feels so foreign. And like, it's straight communist for real. So this is why it's the end of the world. This is why it's Revelations, because like, what else can I do but turn to God? And hope that that truly is the salvation of it all. I thought I'd add on some thoughts that I forgot to mention, or I just had before closing. Like, something about emotions and them being basically overrated reminds me that I was considering a period of not listening to music in order to silence outside influence, because I am aware of the effects music has on me, and not just music itself, but even amongst different genres and different time periods. Some music is just for enjoyment, and some music feels like companionship, and some music just feels deeper. I even tried to focus more on listening to instrumentals and jazz, but I want to retry doing that again. And when I was researching into going and not listening to music anymore, I saw that that's considered haram in for the Quran, listening to music. And I think something about dancing, and I think that makes total sense, because it's not just the temptation, the sensual and the sexual temptation, but that release. Music is so connected to emotions and less about function. And I was also thinking about the role of self-esteem, ego, and how people kind of need it to push themselves forward, even if they aren't the best. Maybe sometimes that illusion is better than nothing. And I see, like, a lot of people online try to control each other's perception of self and say, like, oh, you think you're a 7, but you're really a 5, or you think you're all that, but you're not, and or you look better than you think. Like, it's so, everyone is such an individual that it's like every instance brings up a whole new conversation and a whole new discussion and nitpicking, and like 100 people on one person, and then like they fade away, and then the next person comes and it's like 100 more people, and it's just that idea that we're in these constant states of war and discussions that really get nowhere, because there is such an infinite amount of problems and opinions and beliefs that the only way to win is to leave the internet and just abandon the possibility of getting into it, because like, how can you not see how exhausting that is, and to always consider yourself a judge and to have that responsibility in judging people and making sure that their amount of self-esteem is absolutely precise. and as if we can go into their minds and actually like change their brains and switch them into thinking just like us. And when it comes to women, like, wouldn't you want your wife to believe she is all that? Like, why would you want, or would you want your wife to believe that the average, to believe a truth that is based off the average of other people's judgments? Like, here's my wife, let me have 10 people decide what she is, and then we'll use that average and she must abide by that. No, you would want her to have great self-esteem, or at least believe what you think. Because that self-esteem would also be a reflection of you as a husband, because she would become an extension of you. And who wants their wife to go around and say that they're mid? Like, there's a place for being humble, but I just don't think that's how people want their loved ones to think about themselves. So that's basically it, and I was I've just been on YouTube, bored as hell, and I decided that I'm going to try not to be on YouTube for the month, or as long as I can go without it. I've disabled it from my phone. If I can remove it, I'll try. And since I've been transitioned from being like a monitor person to a phone person, like, I won't bother as much to connect the internet to get on YouTube on my laptop, because I have, being on YouTube is so unproductive, and since I listen to everything at 2 speeds, it's like quadruple the amount of information that I should ever be taking, especially from strangers, and especially from people that I don't necessarily align with, that, they can be interesting, but I don't need a red pill, black pill worldview. I have to honestly try in my life. It's not too late for me. And I haven't done anything bad that warrants taking myself out of the game just because other people are seeking to create like the perfect woman or the perfect person. Which it was only a matter of time after I got rid of my social medias. Like, I knew that I would gravitate towards YouTube, since that would be the most enticing leftover. And that was the plan for this year, to be offline and to grant spontaneity its chance again in real life. Its chance again, and to be the change that I want to see, instead of hunched over on a phone during my work break. Like, actually bring in a book and maybe talk to people. And I was kind of looking into the commandments, which I don't think I'm gonna really study the Bible, but I was thinking, like, okay, so there's these rules that people are supposed to follow, and they're wholesome, good rules, and why not be more like that? And there's less confusion if I'm purposefully following like objective, positive attributes, instead of wondering, how to be a cooler person, how to be an interesting person. To just focus on at least being a good person will never be a waste of time, and it's something that I can really control, and I think that's what I've been leading myself towards anyway, especially with this fasting and minimalism, and getting away from like gluttony, and going towards like cleanliness, and naturally like becoming more appreciative of the things I like, and really honing in on the function, but also the beauty of things, and why I should keep them around me, and also like my health and the food I've been consuming, and listening to my body more, because I've been having some cravings, and it also like correlates with you know, parts of my body that I want to take care of. I've been coincidentally having like cravings, and I'm taking that for what it is, and that maybe I've been listening to myself enough that it is becoming more natural for me. And I genuinely believe good habits eventually form a good life, and my life's pretty okay, but I can take this as an experiment to see by the end of the year like what it will produce. So as for now, I'll consider this my last recording and maybe just write in my journal if anything comes up and have an update later. It really depends if this has also become a habit that I can't shake already, but maybe I'll also show some discipline by not uploading. I don't know. It doesn't actually matter that much. I just know if when I end this video, because YouTube is disabled on my phone, like, that really is the start of it, and maybe I'm putting it off because I want something to do, but I'll probably just sleep and then actually get real things done. So, see you on the other side.